Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. So lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then loving life will guide you. I know that life outside is so hard. There's a lot of things that can tear you apart. I know the roads sometimes feel lonely, but remember you're not the one and only. There's always someone there to help you, a helping hand to pull you through. There's only one thing you should do: take my hand and join the Loving Life crew. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then the loving life guide you.
Koinant, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Yes, I know you only hear music when we start the program every night. Well, Roseanne, you know why I have the music? It's because I can actually see how many people are coming into the live stream, and it takes them a while. So it's like giving them the chance to actually get in, and so I don't start and then they miss what the discussion is all about. So that's why we have an intro song, to give people time to actually join. Alright, let's get going. Now, the first and really exciting news for this channel is we're close to 100,000 subscribers across the two Loving Life channels. On the 2020 channel we should hit 30,000 in the next couple of days, which is fantastic. And talking about that, please remember to subscribe and to ring the bell to be kept informed. Okay, now just a couple of admin matters. Firstly, does anyone know where Jaco van der Merwe is? Because we haven't seen him on the channel or on the live streams now for about a week. And Fran is asking about $100 that she sent for the Go Purple Foundation through his PayPal, but she sees the money is still pending, i.e. it hasn't been touched, it's still sitting there waiting to go somewhere. If anyone knows Jarko van der Merwe, can you please just check to see he's okay? If, you know, just please let us know. All right, now, before we get on to Hein Marx and the ULA, very disturbing, unsubstantiated rumor, okay? But I'm just putting it out there because I'm hearing it from a lot of people now. Friends, there are moles in the cancer who reported, this cancer is the ANC by the way, who reported that the National Executive Committee met via video link last week and got rid of Cyril Ramaphosa unanimously. There are reports that he will act as vice president until the phase 3 lockdown takes place and may openly travel to Cape Town where the final arrangements and state of affairs will be clarified. Ramaphosa couldn't muster the necessary support to stand up against Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma and her faction. He only had Gordhan and Mboweni, while she had the entire Ace Magashula group behind her. In a way, Marula Media today endorses this opinion by reporting that there is growing concern about Ramaphosa's so-called Command Council, which actually means that virtually all the communists and socialists, i.e. COSATU and SACP members in the council, are behind Nkosini Dlamini-Zuma. And so we're looking at a future communist order in South Africa. Alright, I'm just putting that out there. This is unsubstantiated, but you know, there's a lot of noise about that. Now, let's get on to the subject at hand for tonight. And there's a quite remarkable man. His name is Hein Marx, and he is from the United Liberty Alliance, or ULA, or in Afrikaans, the Verenigde Vryheidsalliansie, or VVA. The ULA is a civil rights organization. It is registered in South Africa as well as in America. The ULA is leading the legal process for independence or sovereign secession of oppressed South African minority groups. Additionally, the ULA acts as an umbrella organization to unite all minority organizations and parties, which have the common goal of independence. And I've put ULA's website address directly below this video in the description if you want to go and visit it. And please do, by the way, because you can sign their petition. Now, I'm just going to close before getting Hein on with a comment that was put in the comments below the videos, because I thought it was so on the money. It's short and sweet. And RB said, I can't pay tax. I'm not BEE compliant. I like that. All right, let's get Hein on. Hi, Hein.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. We've got a good crowd here waiting to hear what you have to say. Let me just tell you, we've got nearly 700 people watching at the moment. Now,
but it's lockdown. Everybody's at home. It should be 7 million.
I agree. Well, look, we hit over 1,100 last night, so hopefully we'll do the same tonight. Now, it's been a while since we've chatted to you on the Loving Life live stream. Can you give us an update on how the petition is going and what are the developments within the ULA since we last spoke?
Yeah, well, since we last spoke, it went up, the mandates went up to 236,000, I'd call it 237,000, which is a good figure, but I mean, it's still
a long way to go.
Yeah, it's still not even a full 12% of what we should achieve.
Yeah.
What happened in the ULA? In the meantime, a lot of things happened because we're an active, living organization where people feel the need to get involved and feel the urgency of what we are doing. And what we are doing is we are working towards self-determination. But in order to do so, we've got to inform the people. So most of the people that's involved in the ULA are involved in the marketing of the concept. And yes, that went very well. In fact, it went so good that our website even crashed. but that's also sorted out because we got a new IT guy, which is from Mauriesbach, but he doesn't braai. But he's from Mauriesbach.
I love the way you say your G's.
In English, I can even braai in English. So, yeah, well, we're very active. We have again tried our utmost to make other organizations understand people. This is not about organizations. This is about the urgency of getting the message out. We are, in terms of where we were last year, when we still spoke, I think it was August or so, the last time that we spoke, Scott. A lot have changed. In fact, so much so that the world, and I don't want to call it the virus, because I saw a nice meme the other day. The only virus in South Africa is the ANC.
I think that's pretty much
more havoc than the virus itself.
Yeah.
So in terms of what happened with that, irrelevant if it's international or not, locally in South Africa, is that a lot of people, it really shook them to the foundations. And I'm not going to mention names, but even very, very well-known, very liberal people came out, made voice messages and said, this can't go on like this. And so yes, a lot of people woke up to it, and I'm sure a lot of people will still wake up to the la la land that they thought they were in with this ANC that we've been warning them for years already.
So what you're saying in effect is that those people who had the blinkers on have suddenly realized that there is something not quite right in South Africa.
Well, yes, I would. I wish I could say yes. Point, but unfortunately, no, not everybody. If you read on social media and you hear the things that people still say, how fantastic it's been organized by the government and how fantastic the president is, and I can just laugh and think, people, what still do you need to open your eyes?
Yeah.
And the reality is, they need for them to also not have food anymore. Yeah. I mean, do we really realize as individuals how bad it must be for, I really think it's about hundreds of thousands of people that doesn't even have food tonight.
That's a very interesting point that you've just raised, Hein, and I think the big thing that's happened since we last went on live on the channel is COVID-19, or the coronavirus, because it has completely changed the situation in South Africa. And one of the really concerning areas is the food parcels and feeding the starving. Now, I have a live stream tomorrow night with Rene Roux, who's high up in the Solidarity Helping Hands, and they're currently taking the government to court, because what the government is trying to do is say to all those charities that are collecting food parcels for their communities, which are largely white communities, because the ANC do not deliver food parcels to white communities, so the charities have been forced to do this. The ANC are now saying that, no, you can't deliver to them, you've got to deliver to our central food depot, and we will deliver it. And of course it then won't go to who it's supposed to go to, it'll go to the townships and other places. And I've seen some images of white children in particular who are like skeletons. This is happening right now in South Africa. This is day 3 of my hunger strike. I've actually haven't eaten for over 48 hours now, and I'm doing this to try and, because people can see me on the screen, and as I get thinner and thinner, I was a late starter. These guys are just it's just absolutely chronic what's happening in the squatter camps. What are your thoughts about how COVID-19 is being used by the ANC to really persecute the white population in South Africa?
Scott, a lot of people have already said this, even from the UK. There was an article yesterday again about somebody that quite regularly writes about South Africa, and that said, previously he said, if an international occurrence occurs, how will the ANC use it while the world is focused on something? I mean, at that stage, nobody thought of or knew of a COVID-19 thing. So what I'm trying to say is that the people have predicted this for quite some time. And the reality is, now yesterday the same guy wrote again, well, now we know what they're doing. And I don't 100% agree with him, because the reality is we don't really know what they are really planning. You know, if you look at the legal side of it, I spoke to the ULA's attorney yesterday again about it, Dani Stein. Hello, Dani. He must be there.
Hi, Dani.
And I said, you know, if you look at the case that AfriForum took to the courts last week about the helping of companies, and this Indian judge decided, no, it's not based on it's not based on race. If they must be BEE compliant, and if they're not compliant, then they're not going to help it. I mean, my question is, in public, to that same judge, how bloody stupid can you be to say something like that?
Yeah, I agree.
BEE is totally 100% based on race. He gives a legal judgment in a court of law in South Africa to say it's not race. Now, if that is the quality of judges that we have in this country, thank you for showing us, but showing the world. Now, the next question is then, if that is what the ANC is doing, which means, that was my question to Dani, that to me is one of the first 100% clear signs that South Africa have already moved away from being a legal state,
right, to
being a dictatorship. It's logic. I mean, if your courts makes political judgments, then you can take your what do you call it? Your law, and throw it away.
Yeah.
It's useless.
Yeah.
It's totally useless. So where are we moving from here?
Well, I think,
I believe that Solidarity wants to take them to court again. I mean, you mentioned it as well.
Yeah.
What for? And I mean, to be quite honest with you, this discussion I had with Dirk Herman last year, and he said, well, Hein, we go to court because they've got to adhere to the court. Well, Dirk, there's your proof. They don't. They make political decisions.
Yeah.
And while we sit here tonight and talk about it, there are people, what we started talking about earlier, that doesn't have food tonight.
That's right.
And it's not only tonight. How long have these people didn't have food? For how long? Where are we moving with this? And then you've got to start making, because this is the joke. And I say it's a joke, and I don't mean it's a joke. This is sad. Nobody knows what's happening. Because to start off with this so-called pandemic, this so-called South African National Defence Force that's been sent out to townships, to towns, to basically police the public.
Yeah.
That is illegal in terms of our constitution. It's only legal once not the government sitting up in their chairs and saying something as the big six or whatever they want to call them. The complete parliament must decide about this. They haven't. This is totally illegal what is happening in South Africa in terms of the South African Constitution. Now, I've said it many times, and I will say it tonight again. There's a massive, and people must understand this, there's a massive difference between what a government, and in this case the South African government, may do and what they can do. Now, for the people that have listened to some of my speeches or videos, whatever, before, they will recognize this. I've said it many times. Now here, the ANC have proved that they will do whatever they want to, irrelevant of what they may do. The question is, where does this lead us to? And I'll tell you, even the ANC knows where this leads us to. This will lead us to total anarchy.
Right.
Why do you say the ANC knows it? That's why they deployed the army. They deployed the army for total anarchy. What all the other things is that they want to achieve with this, we don't know. And this is the other point. Are we a democracy? I would love to hear all the people that wants to believe that South Africa is a democracy. If this was a democracy, we would have known. For instance, I'm not a smoker.
Right.
Okay? Why may people not smoke? I mean, how much does it take from you to open your mouth and tell people, listen, I don't want you to smoke because we believe, we've actually spoken to our forefathers, you know, we spoke with Bones, and we decided our forefathers, even, no, I'm serious, Scott, even if that is the reason, okay?
I can tell you the reason, Hein.
Sorry?
I can tell you the reason why this is happening with the cigarettes. I know.
No,
Sure. I can tell you, it's Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who's.
We know that.
Yeah. Well, you carry on, then I'll tell you my conspiracy theory. Okay.
No, that's true. But this is the point.
Yeah.
There shouldn't, in a democracy, be conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Because you should communicate to the public. You know, I'm not a drinker. Cheers, I drink coffee from your mouth.
I've got water.
But, no, this is coffee. I still have. But, when in the beginning they said they're not going to allow the sale of alcohol because there might be a peak in domestic violence, I said, the reason I understand makes sense. And for the people that then can't get alcohol because of that, I know, I understand that, no problem. I also don't smoke. I've never smoked in my life. But give me just one reason. And we're not talking about conspiracy theories, and we're not talking about what we think might and might not be. Have they ever given one reason why you may not buy smokes? But we can take this argument much further. You may, under stage 5, go to the shop and you may buy yourself milli-meal or sugar or coffee or whatever you want. Then as you stand there, you can turn around, put your arm out, and you can take, let's say, a bag of nails because you need it for a door that broke.
Yeah.
But you may not, because that they decided you may not buy.
Because it's not an essential item.
Well, so why? That's not an argument.
Yeah, I know, but that's what they're saying.
I know. That's why I say the ANC are dealing with the total, complete population as if we are all idiots.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if only a couple or a couple of thousand of us realize this, it's worthless. It's the same as the whole You'll Ace campaign. But hopefully, if more people realize what is happening here, and that they stop saying, well, you've got to stand up and do something, that we all stand up. And the something, believe me, I'll tell you what to do. Don't worry about that. But the people must start realizing they are being led by the nose. And let's be honest about it. Let's use the facts. The facts are, we're being led by the nose by thieves.
Yeah.
By thieves.
It's a gangster state.
It's a gangster state. Show me how many people went to jail so far for the robbing of banks, the robbing of the country, the robbing of this, the robbing of that. Nothing, nowhere. Where does that leave us? Because what I don't want tonight, Scott, is that we just talk. I want to be practical about all of this.
Sure,
because
absolutely.
I can go on about this and I can rant and rave a lot. But that's what most people do. They rant and rave.
Yeah.
I'll come with the solutions.
Well, I just want to touch on the cigarette issue, because what a lot of people who are watching, by the way, for the people who are watching, we've got well over 1,000 now. If you'd like to put a question to Hein, just put it into the side chat and one of the moderators will copy it and we'll present that to Hein later in the discussion. I want to get back to the cigarettes issue. What happened was Ramaphosa, as we know, said from the 1st of May, people would be able to buy cigarettes. And what happened behind the scenes is that Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma went to Ramaphosa and said, no, you're not going to allow cigarettes to be sold legally. So then he made the announcement that we're not going to sell you can't buy cigarettes. Now, what's behind this? And you know, the evidence is there. Is Jacob Zuma's, I think it's his eldest son, is Edward Zuma, who's involved in a company that manufactures illegal cigarettes. And
no, Zuma manufactures Zols.
Well, whatever they are, they're sold in cigarette packets.
Yeah.
But they're sold in cigarette packets, and a huge carton, it was something like 1 million cigarettes, was actually found by the police in a warehouse in Johannesburg. And these are the cigarettes that are being given out and sold at twice the normal price if they're sold legally, and paying no tax. And the beneficiary is Edward Zuma, and that's Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma's stepson. So there's clearly some tie in there with the cigarettes. I have absolutely no question about that.
Scott, we don't. This is not a conspiracy theory. You just have to go to the detailed facts that Jacques Pauw have done. You know, he got all the facts and put it in a book, The President's Keepers.
Right.
2 years or so ago. It's already mentioned with names in detail already. It's there. This is nothing new. Jacques Pauw already did that work. I mean, they threatened him how many times with whatever. I don't know him. Good luck to you, Jacques, and if you need assistance, shout. We'll help. The reality is, this is nothing new. The cigarette business, the illegal, no, let's be honest, the illegal cigarette business, and the government ministers,
Yeah.
the connections there, it's 100%, we know it. Zuma, all their cronies, it's gangsters, to say the least of it, that are involved in it. That's the other thing. There's gangsters involved in doing this. And now the question again arises. This is the kind of people that are running our country. Are they running this country for the good of the people? And in this people, I include everybody. From Xhosa, Zulu, Sotho, Ndebeni, Khoisan, white, Boer,
Yeah.
Jew, everybody. No, they're not. They're running this country for their own pocket. And this is what I don't understand about our people, all the minorities in this country. Because I would like to assume that the minorities at least have a bit more insight, or perhaps even IQ,
Right.
than a lot of the others. Not because I'm saying so, because a lot of international experts have already proven it. My question is, why doesn't our people, the minorities, why don't they do anything? Why do they just accept this? Why do they sit and say, well, okay, fine, all our rights have been taken away. I saw, not long ago, I think it was half an hour ago, I saw a video clip on Facebook of a woman being physically thrown into the back of a police van I think it was Blouberg in Cape Town. I don't know what she's done wrong. She might have just been on the street. So let's arrest her. What is happening in this country? They're letting, I think it's 19,000 prisoners out of jail, and I suppose they realize, well, they've got to fill it up, so now they fill it up with people that walk on the streets or that walk too close to each other. I mean, if this, what we are experiencing at the moment, is not a police state, then I don't know what a police state is.
Right. Well,
this is totally 100% a police state.
Yeah. I have to tell you that talking about the Khoi people, I'm going to be talking to King Cornelius on Saturday night at 8 p.m. He's the king of the Khoi. So that's going to be an interesting discussion. But talking about what you're saying here with the anarchy that's happening in South Africa with the police state, I see it quite very simply. You've got a black privilege class, which is the ANC members of parliament, the family members, the well-connected, who live at this incredible level of enrichment, self-enrichment. And then everybody else, including the black community, and the black community really are the ones who've got to wake themselves up. The black community are the ones which are living in increasing poverty. And I think that message is starting to get through now, that they're being dudded by the ANC, who claim to be doing the right thing for them. Because you can see there's a lot of antagonism now between the black community in townships and the police and the army. The police are being pelted with stones, they're having vehicles burnt. The black community have pretty well had enough. They're gat vol. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, interestingly, the words you use. It must have been at least 20 years. I think it was 21 years ago. Louis Leight told me, not once, actually more than once. He said, Hein, I give the ANC 20 to 25 years maximum, and they will implode. I said, okay, interesting. Why do you say it? And he said, Hein, they are creating a black middle class with giving them jobs in the government, giving them contracts, basically giving them money to live a standard of life that the whites were used to. But what does that mean? It means they buy a car and they pay a monthly premium. They buy a house and they pay a monthly premium. They have to take insurance, it costs money per month, which means they've got an income and they've got an expense.
Right.
But it's on a basis of income per month, expenses per month. You've got a nice life, but if you don't have that job or you don't have that service delivery, something goes wrong. He said, and he predicts, and Louis Leight died, I think it was about 3 years ago or so, 3-4 years ago. If not longer, I can't remember. So he's not here to see this because it's happening. It's happening, and it's happening in his time, what he said, between 20 and 25 years. We're 21 years now. He said what he predicts is that the ANC will not be able to carry on with, and he called it, I mean, we spoke Afrikaans, but he called it bullshit. And their middle class will not accept that they cannot pay their monthly premiums anymore. Because, and he said it, the government will steal so much money that the government employees, the middle class blacks, will financially lose out, and they will start losing what they thought they built up over years. And then they will revolt. What he did not know, I mean, nobody knew that, is that it's not only the middle class, it's everybody. In fact, everybody means everybody from each and every group.
Right.
Everybody is losing out. My question is, we are into this lockdown now for just over a month. I predicted a week before it started, when they said it's going to be a lockdown, I said, this is the beginning of changing of South Africa totally forever. It will never be the same. I said it. I still say it. And I said, I predict that 70% of all businesses, big and small, don't make a mistake, big ones as well, will not survive. Now, we don't know as we sit here tonight, but how many businesses can now, a month later, open their doors again and go on? I can tell you a lot have already gone under.
Right.
And unfortunately, the snowball effect of companies going under is massive, because their suppliers, the people that work for them, everybody in the circle of that business is touched by it. If you take that in the bigger picture, where it's bigger companies, and bigger companies can't pay their suppliers, and their suppliers can't pay the manufacturers, how will this thing snowball? It's massive.
It's huge.
We don't have words for it. We talk about it. I think I understand it. I don't think we do understand how big this is going to be. And then my question is, why is the government knowingly allowing this to happen? The example I mentioned earlier, you may not turn around and take something from another shelf here or another shelf there, because it's not essential goods. Now you've got to ask yourself the question, was this done on purpose? Or is our government really so stupid? So let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say it must be one of the two, because it must be one of the two.
Yeah. Well, look,
But it must be one of the two. Was it done on purpose, or are they that stupid? It was definitely done on purpose that they closed it.
Yeah.
Did they really not foresee what will happen? That's impossible. I can't believe it. It's impossible.
Well,
sorry, Scott, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, but look, the L factor is completely missing in action when it comes to the ANC government. They've got no logic at all. But I want to talk about this lockdown in particular, because, you know, what the ANC government have done is they've tried to be the big boy in Africa and just copy what the first world countries like Australia and America and in Europe did with a lockdown. The difference is in Australia, in Europe, and the USA, people have apartments. They can actually socially isolate themselves. In South Africa, in the townships, you can't. And by keeping the taxis running, it's a petri dish for the coronavirus. You know, you've got one person with the virus, and they're in this little taxi with 4 or 5 others. And from what I'm hearing, the taxis are operating as normal. They're not abiding by the rules, and no one's getting arrested there. So it's a perfect petri dish for the coronavirus to spread right through everybody in that taxi. And what's happening in Khayelitsha right now, you can see it's just exploding. And where the curve should be, as they call it, slowing down, it's actually escalating because it's happening in the township. So the lockdown quite frankly, is a failure. It's not working. South Africa can't do it. It can't do what a first world country is doing. So it's simple logic. Get rid of the damn lockdown. Let the coronavirus do what it's going to do. Let the economy get back on a good footing, and that you'll hit a peak, and yes, there'll be people who will die, and that's tragic. But at least the economy will survive, because if the economy dies, there are going to be a heck of a lot more people dying of starvation than the COVID-19 would ever kill. What are your thoughts on that with scrapping the lockdown?
You see, I've got to bring in my legal advisor again here, Dani.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you asked me a week, I think it was the first week after lockdown, you said, Hein, what would you have done in the circumstances? And my answer to him was exactly what I will tell you,
right,
Scott. And my answer was, if you look at, and we're talking about the first week of the lockdown, if you look at what is happening, remember we had at least some insight into what this virus might do in China, and specifically at that stage when we started, it was very bad in Italy. So we knew it's not going to be that we're going to lose 10 or 20 or 1,000 people. It'll be much more. So my words were, how many people can a country afford to lose? Dying. I said 1,000. I don't know where the figure 1,800 came from. I think we took that from, there were 18 people infested or something like that. I can't remember. The point is, I said, can we afford to lose 1,800 people? Yeah. Can we afford to lose 18,000? Yes. Can we afford to lose 180,000? Yes. Can we afford to lose 1.8 million people? Yes. We can. Any country with, in our case, 65 million people. I mean, it's still sad to lose 1.8 million people. And again, I say that the 1.8 came from, we had 18 people infested or something like that. So I just extrapolated the 18. Of course we can afford to lose it. But I'm telling you now, Dani, I told him, if this lockdown goes on like this, we're going to have more than 18 million, if not more people, dying of hunger. Alternatively, dying in the streets, fighting each other for food. And then, when they're finished with that, the rest of the people will have basically nothing to go back to. Because you didn't want to lose, and I'm using the worst figure, 1.8 million. I mean, where's the logic in that? And the answer is very simple. The ANC is not worried about the, call it 1.8 million people that they're going to lose. They're more interested in what their plans are doing under the cover of, in this case not darkness, the cover of lockdown, what they think that they might get out of it in the long run. What I don't understand about the ANC and about a lot of other countries where dictatorships and that kind of stuff happens, doesn't these people realize and have seen how the International Criminal Court works? They can't go and have their fantastic holiday forever on a beach in wherever. The world got too small. It's not even the millions, it's not even the billions, I think it's the trillions that they steal is not safe anymore. The world doesn't work like that anymore, that a government can steal. And if I say a government, it's sad to say in South Africa, it's a government, it's not only individuals. They can't just steal so much that they think, right, now our time is up, we will take the aircraft that we grounded and flee to wherever. It doesn't work like that anymore. The world will not allow it. Justice doesn't work like that in any case. So my question to the ANC government is, do you really think you're going to get away with what you're planning? Do you really think that the minorities in this country will accept this total lockdown, dictatorship, police state forever? Got a surprise coming for you guys.
Right.
It can't go on like this, because the reality is, if the factories must close, and I think it was about 3 weeks ago already, I heard that Premier Milling have already basically stopped their production. The people will die of hunger, but before they die, they will fight.
Yeah.
What does the ANC government think? Mr. Ramaphosa, what do you think? How will your own people, you talk about, Mr. Ramaphosa, your people, and I talk about my people. Fine. My people, they're the minorities. Your people, Mr. Ramaphosa, where will they get food? Your Minister Lesufi said, and there's a video about it, this is all recorded, we are in the modern age, the 21st century, Mr. Ramaphosa. We have video cameras, all of us. Not like in the 80s where you were very nice when you had a 8mm camera. We all now have video cameras. Where he said, Malema's words, isn't that interesting? It's not Uhuru yet. He said it last week.
Yeah.
What do they think? How is this going to play out? Or don't they want to think about it? Or are they so power hungry that they just want power with bodies? Because at the end of the day, you will only have skin, bones and bodies.
Right.
And I know a group of people in South Africa, if you look at their history, they will not accept it. They are the ones that are sitting diligently at home with their masks. I don't have my mask here now. They don't smoke because they don't have any more. They don't drink because they don't have anything to drink anymore. They drink coffee and they make pineapple beer. They're sitting there because they are obedient citizens. You can push anybody only to a certain point and not further, Mr. Ramaphosa. You do not communicate with your people, Mr. Ramaphosa. You are playing with fire, Mr. Ramaphosa. I don't know what you are planning, but if you don't know it, you must communicate with your people. And if you can't, resign. You've got enough money already that you haven't worked for.
Well, I don't think he'll have to resign, because from what I'm hearing, he's already been sidelined by Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Now, think about this,
that's what we hear. But if I say Ramaphosa here, I mean Zuma,
Yeah.
Whoever, Ace Magashule. The one is a bigger crook than the other one.
They're all
When
crooks.
Magashule was the premier of the Free State,
Yeah.
a maximum of 3 months. Then he gave salary increases to all his staff every month.
Yeah.
That's a good manager, isn't it? Yes, from the employee's point of view, not from the people that must pay that salary. And our government thinks that that's their money. It's not their money. There is such a massive misconception in the world, not only in South Africa, in the world, about constitutions and the law. Constitutions are there to protect the people, not the government.
Right.
But governments use it and the power they have to do whatever they want to. And it's not only in South Africa. South Africa is just one of the worst examples.
Hein, just for the record,
We are heading towards a total anarchy in this country. Sorry, Scott?
Just for the record, we've got about 1,500 people watching at the moment, which is a record for this channel. So congrats, guys, and please remember to subscribe and ring the bell. We have live streams every night like this at 8 p.m. and we have some very, very interesting people. As I said earlier, on Saturday night we have King Cornelius of the Khoi joining us. That's going to be a fascinating discussion. And we've got Rene Roux of Solidarity Helping Hands tomorrow night. Now, you've just touched on anarchy. At what point do the adults in the room, which are a certain minority group, say, that's it, we've had enough, we're going to secede and let these guys just go and play with it with themselves? What is the actual point where that happens? You're the man who knows. You're the expert in secession. When legally can that happen?
Okay, I'm smiling, Scott, because I've talked about this and I've mentioned it so many times it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Seminars, in videos, in conferences, whatever. I think it was December this year. We had a meeting here in my house in Hartenbos, and the United Nations representative was here as well.
Right.
Afrikaans guy. And it got to that point where they talked about civil war and stuff. And somebody asked, but how do you determine when is it a civil war and who determines that? And everybody looked at him. And he looked at me, he said, Hein, what is your feeling on that? I said, well, the law is it's not actually 100% clear about it, but it's actually very understanding of a civil war is firstly recognized by the foreign embassies in a country. Okay? Right. They determine now it's a civil war. How do they determine it's a civil war? It's a civil war when your government structures, security system, meaning the police and the army, does not have control over the population anymore when there is total anarchy. And he looked at me, and the other people in that room, they will know exactly what I'm talking about now. He looked at me and he said, wow, you're right. It's that simple, but I will go and have a look at it from the United Nations point of view. But you're right, it makes sense. He says, but what is it? What is total anarchy? And I'll never forget, a couple of years ago, I spoke a lot to Professor Marinus Wiggers. He was basically the architect of our current constitution. And we had a conference the whole day. It was only six of us the whole day. And after lunch, we came in, and my first question, I said, Marinus, I want to ask you the first question. So, yeah. I said, what is the difference between total anarchy and a civil war? We just had lunch. Nice. He sat back and he said, why do you have to start this so difficult now? I said, because now the pressing things start. He says, Hein, there's no difference. I said, thank you. That's the whole point. So what I'm trying to say, Scott, is that people talk about anarchy, total anarchy, and civil war because they're scared of using the word civil war or war.
Yeah. Because
all of us, it's human nature, we have this specific picture, everybody's got a different picture in their heads of a civil war. So let's rather not talk about it. And in any case, if you don't talk about it, it won't happen. That's also human nature. So let's rather talk about total anarchy. The reality is it's the same thing. What is happening currently in South Africa now, today, there are thousands and thousands of people that doesn't have food.
Yeah.
Our incredibly trained, intelligent, high IQ'd government and officials.
You aren't talking about South Africa, are you?
Yes, yes, yes.
You
Yes, no,
are?
sure.
Okay.
Have even overpaid, double paid a lot of SASSA grants this month.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Crazy.
They do that in a time when there's no money. But you know what they're doing? They are playing without realizing it. God at work. God at work.
Yeah.
Because don't underestimate what is happening here is God at work. He is using their own plans against them. They overpaid double a lot of SASSA grants. What do you think is going to happen next month?
They won't have enough
There
money.
won't be money.
Yeah.
So a lot of people ask me, a lot of times, this has been coming on for years, when do you think? When do you think? And then when it doesn't happen, they say, you said. Okay? So nobody can say. But when things are so clear as it is today, then I'm telling you, by the end of this month, 18 million people minimum. 18 million. Earlier I was talking about thousands, remember?
Yeah.
Now I'm telling you, 18 million won't have food. And then we are not even looking at, in this month, coming month, how many trucks will be hijacked, burnt, and drivers even killed and all the food stolen that won't get to the shops in any case.
Right.
And then what happens then? How many people do you need to start, let's use the nice word, a total anarchy? In Africa, you don't need a lot. Because in Africa, if it happens here, it will happen there, and it will happen there, and it will happen all over. We are moving towards a civil war. If we were not moving towards a civil war, Malema would not have mentioned that they will kill us and our budgies and our pet snakes and our goldfishes and everything. Lessufi would not have said, not Uhuru yet. Malema would not have said, don't kill them yet. Where does this come from? Do you think this is all just by chance? That they all talk about the same thing? You'll be extremely naive and stupid, specifically under these circumstances, to believe that.
Right.
This is not something that, well, you know what, tomorrow or next month we will get out of this, and then everything is going to be fine. It will not be. It will not be fine. Do I want that? Of course, nobody wants it. We are all going to suffer. We will all suffer. But how do we get out of it? I'll tell you how to get out of this. Firstly, everybody must go on their knees and prepare their souls for what is coming. God is at work here. The people that doesn't believe me and the people that will laugh at me because I'm a Christian, well, good luck to you. Because at some stage, even the Christians will say, now is the time that we will take our precious Bible and we will put it in the cupboard or in the Varkas if you want to. And now we're going to fight for our survival.
Yeah.
With that same God with us, we are moving towards a civil war. If that was not the case, why did the government deploy 73,000 soldiers? Why did they call up all reserves, everybody except funny enough, the white reserves? They were not called up. The person that still believes that things are just going to be fine at the end of the month, I will sit here tonight and I will guarantee you, you can come to me, I will guarantee you, you will still be in lockdown at the end of this month. 100%. Why? Because there are other sinister plans that the government is busy with, positioning themselves for whatever, I don't know, for whatever they're doing. Yes, like you said, the stealing of money with illegal cigarettes. I mean, this is so ridiculous to even say it, Scott.
Yeah.
The government minister is doing something that they can steal more money.
Yeah.
But we talk about it as if it's normal. People, it's not normal. The question is, when are they going to wake up to say enough is enough? And no, that does not mean, people, that you've got to stand up, take your air rifles, your windbukse and the .22s and let's go and have a fight. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. That time that you've got to leave your windbukse and your .22 at home and rather take your 308 and your 3006 or 243 and fight, that's also coming. And don't underestimate it.
Right.
Why do you think, again, did Joker Sele start with this whole thing of taking firearms back? Why did he do it? Just because he felt like it? Why did they then start with a whole story of you may not eat venison? This is all preparation to do things. Look at the history of the ANC for the past 25 years. I've said this many times and I will say it again. When are we going to start believing the ANC? They tell us every time that they're going to do something. And then people, when you tell them this is what they're telling you, they say, no, it won't happen. By the way, Scott, as a matter of interest,
yeah,
the ANC will never change the Constitution, Article 25, to take property without compensation.
Why is that?
This is what I've heard a million times. They've already changed it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Being sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
That's the point. When I and a lot of other people warned people this is going to happen.
Yeah.
No. It'll never happen. They will never change the Constitution. They will never change Article 25. I mean, remember one thing. In any case, Article 25 is not only a human basic right, it's an international law that everybody's got the right to own property.
And the mainstream media are being dead quiet about it, aren't they?
Absolutely hopeless. I don't want to. Let's not talk about jokers.
Okay.
I'd rather talk about the corrupt government.
Yeah.
And talk about the so-called mainstream media.
I want to raise a couple of things from what you've just been talking about. The first thing is, for those people who are watching, please remember to subscribe to the channel. We have really interesting live streams every night at 8 p.m. with different people. Make sure you ring the bell so you get all the updates. Now, Hein, getting back to what you were just talking about, I guess, again, for everybody listening, the most important thing is prepping. Having supplies of food and necessities in your home that can see you over a bad period. I mean, that is just pure logic. When you talked about anarchy, I've got friends who live in Pietermaritzburg, and they're saying that the looting from the shops is just out of control in that beautiful old city. And obviously it's going to spread as people get hungry. And to your point about looking to the future, I only heard about Sina van Rensburg when I started this channel, and people kept on saying, do you know Sina van Rensburg? Have you heard of Sina van Rensburg? And he talks about this time when the blacks will take power, and then he says, but the Boer nation will then have their own country after this dark period, which is obviously the period he's talking about now. Now, do you think that this lockdown is actually a silver lining, because it's going to bring the country into anarchy? The whites will get together and they'll set up their own state, and then, just like Sina van Rensburg says, they will protect that and develop that. and keep it to basically the minority groups, and let these guys just fight it out outside the boundaries. What do you think about that?
Scott, I'm smiling because, I mean, I've said it a couple of times, and if we were sort of having a private conversation here that the ANC may not hear, what a joke. We can say this totally openly in public.
Yeah.
The ANC is playing 100% in our hand for secession. Why do I say it so openly? Because when you are so power hungry, there's another word, you're also power drunk. They're drunk. They're power drunk. They only see what they want to achieve. They only see what they want to get, and all of that. It always goes back to money and power.
Right.
That's all they see. They're playing 100% in our hand. Why? Because the legal process that we followed up until now, the letters that we have with the sheriff of the courts, relas, what is that in English? Well, basically the proof that they've delivered it. It's all there.
Right.
And it's all been delivered to the international community. Nobody can go against that. So if all of this is in place, I've said it, I can't remember, I think I've said it on your show earlier as well. 6-7 years ago, when I started with this whole process, just after I started, I told my wife, looking at what I'm trying to do, and at that stage I was driving around the country, going to Orania to look at the old work that the Volksraad was doing. That was in terms of Article 235, or the now Article 235, the accord that General Viljoen had signed. I get home every time, and I told my wife once, I said, what I'm doing here, because people were laughing at me. People were literally laughing at me when I said, we have to get our own self-determination by secession.
Right.
And I said, I 100% believe in this, and I totally believe we can do it. And at that stage, I still didn't even know international law. And I said, there's one thing I'm sure of, and that is without God's intervention. And my wife still said, you mean a miracle? I said, yes, a miracle. Without a miracle, without God's intervention, this can't happen. It's impossible. And if I've got to tell you tonight, and all the people that listen, all the miracles that happened up until now, you will say, wow, it's not possible. Or the people that believe will say, wow, yes, I understand, and I see God's hand in it. But if you only look at now, and remember, I'm looking at this from the minority's point of view from South Africa. What is happening in the world, and I'm looking at the total raping of their own power that they have, the ANC. It's a miracle what is happening, because they are playing 100% in our hand. But it goes further than that, because the other thing that I've also said many times, we must also understand, everybody that says I'm a Christian is not necessarily a Christian. Everybody that says I don't steal doesn't mean it. He might be a complete crook. In fact, I've said it many times, crooks don't come to you and say, listen, I'm going to bedonner you, watch out for it, right, let's now start.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Those are the nicest guys, are the ones that are actually in it to try and do you in. Or not always, but I mean, you understand what I'm trying to say. So, I've also said, God is also busy with the cleansing process. God wants to make sure that, now, I've never said that I know the Bible. I've never said that I'm a prophet, because I'm not. I've never tried to argue with anybody about the detail of the Bible. I won't do it. For a lot of reasons, but I won't do it. But there's one thing that I see here, and that is, if you look at Sodom and Gomorrah, if you look at the flood of Noah, just look at those two examples. Now, the Bible tells us that God planned it and God executed, basically exterminating the human race at that stage because they were totally corrupt. And it's interesting, in the Bible, totally corrupt, but also sexually totally perverted. Does that sound familiar? In the year 2020.
Yeah, you bet.
Interesting. So what I'm saying is that I believe, that's my belief, God is busy with a cleansing process. And I don't think God says good, bad, bad, good. No. He, in the process, I think, gives the people the chance to go and rethink their lives. But when the hammer falls, it will fall.
Well, I think you've raised a very, very important point, and I'm just going to address, we've got over 1,700 people watching right now. I'm going to just address those people, and look, it's time to turn to God and pray, because if the whole nation of South Africa, or those who are Christians, turn to God and just take his guidance, there's no question this country will come through the other end after this dark period with the ANC and their corruption. Sorry, back to you, Hein.
No problem. No, so Scott, what I'm also saying here is that the people that wants to sit back and say, well, I've got a nice holiday, because there are people that think this lockdown to them is a massive holiday. I think it's also the same people that don't have any brandy and coke and whatever people drink left anymore, so now they're frustrated. I think the people that see this as a massive holiday, or alternatively are too blind to see what is really happening. As time goes by, and time in this sense doesn't have to be weeks and months, can be day to day, more and more people's eyes open, for sure. I think the message that must go out, from my side, definitely 100%, the message that must go out is turn back to God. Look at your life and admit what you've done wrong, repent for it. That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, realize that it is your God-given right, but also your South African and international legal right to govern yourself.
Right.
And that's what we've been working on. That's why we've been doing all the work, building this vehicle for secession.
Right.
But we need the people to push the vehicle, because the electricity is going out. It's an electric vehicle. What I'm saying is that people must start thinking things will never be the same again. Either they will become the sheeple that a lot of people have been, or they will become the leaders, fathers, and heads of households. And I'm specifically talking to the men now, that they're supposed to be. Because, yes, I also 100% believe it will still go much worse before it goes better.
Right. Now, I just want to make a comment here, and that is that someone asked, who is Hein Marx? Well, Hein is the leader of the ULA, and they are pushing for secession in South Africa for the minority group in the Western Cape. and another area as well. But just while we're talking about the ULA, below this video in the description you'll see a link to their website, and please, if you haven't done so, click the petition and join the petition. Be part of that, okay? Okay.
Scott,
now,
to just answer that person,
carry on.
Hein Marx, I'm the person, I'm the sucker that put myself up, my time and my everything to fight for you.
Right, and that's spot on the money. Now, we got a heap of questions here, which I might start going through and putting to you. John Jefferson said, what are Hein's thoughts on globalists running the ANC? And I've just got to add something there, that we know, for example, that Professor Ruth Hall from PLAS, which is based in Cape Town, it's an NGO, she's actually writing the policy documents that the ANC government are actually lodging in Parliament. They're not put together by the advisors in the MEC's offices. They've been put together by these NGOs. And what's disturbing is that most of her funding comes from the Open Society Foundation, which is George Soros. So
I'm glad you mentioned it because I was thinking when this was coming, yeah.
Yeah, so what's happening is the policy that's been presented to Parliament and has been accepted, like Chapter 2 or Section 25 you're talking about just now, all that is being determined by a totally unelected NGO group. So getting back to his question, he says, Hein's thoughts on globalists running the ANC.
You know, I think you must be incredibly naive not to believe that they're not being run by the globalists. And there are many examples and proofs of that. But let's take the last example. What did Bill Gates do in South Africa, Cape Town, Gugulethu and everything last year? Why did Ramaphosa meet with George Soros last year?
Right.
They're not politicians. Now the interesting thing is, and remember Trump's words, he's going to drain the swamp. There's an act since, I think it was, and please don't quote me on this, I think it's 1680 odd, just after independence in America. In America, there's an act called the Logan Act. And the Logan Act in the American Constitution basically means that no person other than officially designated government officials with permission may talk to another country on a political level. And in fact, the interesting thing is that act, the Logan Act, has only been used once in all these years, 400 years, or nearly 400 years, 300 and something years. And it was used 2 years ago against General Flynn, which, I don't know, for the people that know it will recognize it, a total setup.
It was.
Scam.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the FBI and the Democratic Party. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is, in terms of the question and what I said about Bill Gates and George Soros, my personal opinion, and I mean, I think I've answered your question already. Of yes, of course, I don't think so. I think I know that they're being run by them.
Yeah. Because
we also know that George Soros pays people and organizations to do things the way he wants it to do. And the interesting thing about that is, and that's why I referred to the Logan Act and Trump's draining the swamp, is that these guys are not in the government, and even if they were, which they're not, Bill Gates and George Soros, they are interfering in foreign countries, in other countries than America, exactly what the Logan Act prohibits them from doing. And the reality is, there's an old saying that says nothing that you and somebody else knows is a secret. It's only a secret until it comes out. Everything will come out. And I also believe, quite simply, because again, if you look at George Soros is an evil person.
Ah, he's terrible.
He's evil. I'm sorry, he's just evil.
Yeah.
But then if you look at Bill Gates, that comes over as this philanthropist, he's this beautiful person. But he went with Weinstein to his island.
Yes.
That that raped and sexually abused children.
Yeah.
Why? Where? How? Ask yourself all these questions. And I'm saying, God at work. These things will come out. And if we see ourselves as God's nation, we are not only this small little country at the bottom of Africa that's insignificant. No. We are just as important as any other country in terms of our Christianity. And I believe, like I said earlier, God is busy with a cleansing process.
Yeah.
The world is corrupt. It's corrupt. Just look at those two. Look at all the facts that came out about Bill Gates, of how he's been involved in this virus stuff and all the immunizations and stuff. A lot of things came out. And I can tell you now, a lot of people have known this for a long time, but they don't want to talk about it because nobody will believe them. Why do people now believe them? Because it's all open on and the whole world sees what's happening. So I think I answered your question. Okay. Yes, I totally believe. I totally believe that they are run by globalists.
Okay, we've got about 30 questions here, so I'm just warning you.
I won't go into details much again. Sorry.
So no, you take your time. We got all night. Ron Stone said, "Is the ULA pointing out the race plight to the international world at present?"
Yes, we are. Absolutely. But we're not using it as a race. We talk about minorities.
Right.
Because the minorities in South Africa, we're being persecuted as minorities. We know that it is race, but when we talk about, for instance, the BEE thing, then it's totally based on race.
Right.
But we make it very clear that it's the coloreds and the whites that are being trampled on and persecuted. When it's a specific thing like the case last week in the High Court in Northern Limpopo or whatever, that is totally 100% race, point. But the interesting thing is, they don't say it's race, but it's BEE or BBEE, whatever they want to call it. You see, they can't spell, they can't work, so now they've got more B's and more E's, but they know it's got something to do with the B and E. The point is, we know that it's because we mustn't make the mistake to think that if he says BEE, that it's only white. Remember, that's also now against coloreds.
Yeah.
It's also against Indians.
Yeah.
Because that's what BEE says. It's not only against white, it's against Indians and coloreds.
Now, the next question is from Boerevegter, and he says, Hein, do you see a massive uprising against the ANC?
Boerevegter, where can I meet you? Because that's where we're heading. Yes, I totally see it. But I don't see it as the Boere will fight against the ANC, because it won't be necessary. There's a saying in English that says dog eats dog. Scott was referring to it earlier. There's already massive amounts of problems within the ANC that people now start talking, and I see it all over social media, that they want to get rid of Ramaphosa, because what they're saying, you didn't mention it, so let me mention it, is they're saying that his boiling of the frog is going too slow, they want to do it quicker. Irrelevant of what the reason is.
Yeah.
They will start fighting against each other, and it will start at the top. It won't start in one of the villages in Natal or in Transkei, it will start on top, and it's already starting.
Right. Now, Tinus Miller says, ask Hein if he is willing to unite under one command to empower the minorities to do something. Now, perhaps you can just talk about this alliance, because we had Gavin Scrooby on a couple of nights ago. He's with the EMTC, which is part of this alliance, and he said you are part of the alliance. Tell us what it's actually working on. I guess it's like a command structure that can actually work together.
Okay. You must understand. Let me first explain. What is the ULA? The ULA is not an organization with members. We are only an alliance to get all these organizations together, that they can work together. We are only pushing a international legal process. The local legal process stopped the 13th of December 2017. Then it stopped. All internal remedies have been exhausted then. Before that, but especially after that, we are pushing the international legal process. So the ULA, our job is to push the process. What we are also very, very actively doing is now to push for the mandate for the secession. So in terms of command structures, we're not into that. We've got nothing to do with it. There are a lot of alliance partners that belongs as individual. It's like a confederate system, because that's what we stand for. as individual sovereign organizations, but they belong to the ULA, and it doesn't mean anything else than, well, we subscribe to the concept of, we also want to secede. We also believe in what you're saying, that we want a confederate system, which means everybody goes on their own, but only for minorities. We've got nothing to do with the Nguni tribes. We've seen over nearly 400 years, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I hope that answers his question.
I think so, Hein. Now, CP has asked, do you think that the South African banks are at risk of collapse due to the large amount of bad debts?
I don't think so. I know it. It's logic. It's logic. I mean, if you look at what happened in 2008 in America, if it wasn't for the American government that had the funds, more than 99% of the banks in America would have collapsed. Where's this government going to get the money to support the South African banks? And they won't do it in any case. Of course they're going to collapse. But again, and I don't want to go into detail, I've said this many times, the banks in South Africa were corrupt in any case. So bye, let them go. But they will collapse, for sure.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I've worked at Barclays Bank way back in the 1970s. And I had a lot of friends in Barclays Bank, and one of them lives in Pietermaritzburg. And he, after 1994, was basically retrenched, and his job was given to a black fella under BEE, and they then contracted him. This is a bank, and every day he went out to different branches of Barclays Bank to fix up the complete mess that they had made of documents and loans and stuff like that. He said, Scotty, you should have seen some of the shit that I saw. I mean, it would make your hair stand on it. They just didn't have a clue, but the banks just put them in there because that made sure that they achieved BEE status. It's just ridiculous.
There are always exceptions to any rules. So I will never make the blank statement to say all companies that are BEE compliant. But I'll tell you one thing, 99% of the companies that are BEE compliant, this is serious for me to say this, but I will say it, I wish they go under, because they are part of keeping this government in control. They were like puppies rolling over and say, What else? How many more? And yes, I've been in the position where a couple of years ago I was told by Denel, that also saw their backside in the meantime.
Right.
I'm sorry, we can't do business with you anymore. If your company does not have 51% black ownership. This was one of the heads of Denel. And I said, I beg your pardon? He said, well, don't be angry with me. I said, I beg your pardon? Do you really think I'm just going to give my company away? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll close it.
Yeah, a lot of people have.
It. You know what he told me? And by the way, for anybody that wants to know, I'll give you all the details of the people. It's irrelevant now because they're all sitting without work in any case now. You know what he told me? He said, you've got a mother company in the Netherlands. In future, quote from them, then you don't have to be BEE compliant. I said, but that's going to cost you 25 to 30% more. He said, well, irrelevant. And you wonder why they went under. You can't run a business like that.
Yeah.
A country is nothing else than a business. Denel was an extremely profitable business up until 1994.
Yeah, like everything else.
They even ran that into the ground.
Well,
there is nothing that they can run except crime syndicates. Oh, sorry, the other one is illegal cigarette business.
Well, they're very good at that, let's face it. At least they're good at something. But when it comes to state-owned enterprises, because of the corruption and the way they run them, well, it's self-evident what happens. No. We've always got to be fair. There is one very good thing that the ANC has done, and we've got to give credit where credit needs. The ANC have single-handedly and are still busy single-handedly getting more and more of the minorities to wake up and stand together. Yeah.
They've done it. We've tried. We couldn't. We couldn't do it. Yeah. But they've done it.
Okay, now let's get to the next question, Hein. This is from Trudy Pretorius, and she says, but what is the solution that ULA propose we do now?
Yeah, Trudy, I must admit, I talk to so many people, and I've spoken to Scott. I think this is the fourth time, Scott. I don't know.
Third or fourth, yeah.
That you assume that everybody that listens know what we're doing. So perhaps I should, in less than 2 minutes, tell you what the ULA is doing and what we propose. The ULA is a non-profit organization. Our only goal is to get the international law of secession into place, that we can have, to use the American term, they like to use the term, a two-state solution. So you make of one state, two states. That means secession. So what we're saying is that we want to split South Africa, the current South Africa, up into two separate countries. And the area, I don't know if there's some of your people that might have the maps, Scott, but the area is basically the old Cape Province, or for the younger people, the current Western Cape, Northern Cape, and most of the Eastern Cape. It includes the whole west side of the Free State, a bit into the Transvaal that includes Pretoria. Why that area? Quite simply because we used the 2011 IEC figures, and we worked out that those are the areas, according to the voting districts, where the minorities form the majority. Why? Because I think there are 12 bases that you can use, or legal arguments that you can use for secession.
Right.
Of which de facto having most people in an area is not only the most important, but also the strongest argument. So what we're saying is that we want to secede that away. If, this can take another 5 hours. A lot of people have asked, but will the ANC give it? Can it happen? The point is, 253 countries, I think, have already successfully seceded since 1776. Why 1776? Which was the first country that successfully seceded away from their mother country being the word used in international law for the country that you secede away. That was America. It wasn't known then as secession, but it became known later as secession because there was an international law written as secession. And that's the first thing. So, yes, 253 countries already successfully seceded away from their mother countries. Will the ANC allow it? No, they won't. Is it relevant? No, it's not relevant because they don't have to allow it. It's international law. And again, now, you can go into detail. So that's what we're doing. We are proposing a new confederate system in this area that we are talking about, because that includes all the European people and all the colored people, including the Indian people, that we are the minorities officially in the country.
Right.
Just after 1994, even the coloreds and Indians were used as blacks, by the blacks, to vote for them. And in the meantime, they've been officially sanctioned as minorities, rather, let's put it nicely like that. End of last year, even the Indians were excluded from BBBEEE. So, in this new country, we are saying, as is happening at the moment in a lot of countries in the world, a lot, even in America, Scotland, you name it, there are many countries, where people are getting more and more, you can use a lot of words, but let's rather call it nationalistic, where they say, I want to be with my own people.
Yeah.
In 2015, we had our first official meeting as so-called whites or European leaders with colored or Khoisan leaders. And I said in that meeting, interestingly enough, they asked, the coloreds and the Khoisan asked, they specifically asked Pieter Maree of the Freedom Front, he's there now, he phoned me and he said, Hein, we're going to have the meeting, but all the people ask, because General Constant Viljoen, don't you want him to be with in this meeting as well, because we trust him? I said, of course, sure. And I mentioned that because he was involved in this from day one. I knew him, he was a very, very ethical guy, and yeah, sad that he passed away not long ago. Make a long story short, in that meeting I said, guys, do you want to be governed by whites again? No, of course not. No, why are we here? I said, thank you. We don't want to be governed by you either. But let's work together. Eendrag maak mag.
Exactly.
Let's work together and we will fight for your freedom and for our freedom. And you fight for our freedom and for your freedom. Because in a pure confederate system, everybody's got their own sovereign freedom. That's what we're fighting for. That's what the ULA is.
Right. Now, Michelle... That's okay. Michelle Duplessis says, is there a difference between corruption in the Xhosa and the Zulu if you look at the presidents? Mandela and Mbeki went through white government universities. Zuma and Ramaphosa, totally corrupt?
What's the difference? Stealing is stealing.
Yeah.
Perhaps I didn't understand the question, but I mean stealing is stealing. Let's take Ramaphosa. Where did Ramaphosa get his billions? That money was supposed to go for so-called upliftment of his people. What did he do? He took all the shares. That's where he got his money. Is that not corrupt? Of course it's corrupt.
Yeah.
He was set up for his own good. And he was the architect of it. Nobody else. Does he want to argue with me on that? Please, pleasure. Pick a court. I'll pick my advocates and attorneys. Stealing is stealing. And it's even worse when you steal so much that your countryman dies of hunger. Stealing is stealing. I don't see a difference.
Yeah, they've got no moral compass. That's the trouble. Now, Michelle Michelle Duplessis says, is there a difference between the... Oh, no, hang on. We've just done that one. CP asks, do you think that the South African banks are at risk of total collapse due to the large amount of bad debt? I think you've answered that question before, haven't you? Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely yes is the answer. Silke Straal says, do you really think the masses will ever see the truth that the ANC do not care about the black people en masse, as the parallel of Zimbabwe has not awakened to the similarities?
If he's referring to the black masses,
yes,
I agree with him. No, they won't. But if he refers to the majority of the minorities, then my question to him is, yes, that's why you are here tonight and listening to this. And that's what we need. We don't need the black masses to wake up to it. We need the minorities, the whites and the coloreds, to wake up to what they may legally have. And they may legally have freedom, financial freedom, political freedom, and politically looking after themselves and having freedom to decide on their own way of praying to God, of what they teach their children in school. Freedom. We want freedom. That's what we want. We don't need dictatorships. We don't need governments to tell us what to do and what not to do. And the interesting thing is, a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, this is exceptional circumstances now." No, it's always been like this. It's always been like this. Freedom is not the way it was the past 25 years. I'm sorry, that's not freedom. The moment you go against the government, then you can say you're free or not by seeing how they treat you. There are how many people that have got experiences with going against the government and see what happened to them. Let's leave it there.
Right. Okay, next question. Is it not better just to let the ANC continue as they are? This will eventually turn the populace against them as a fait accompli, which should show at the polls. I don't think there'll be another election. What do you think?
I actually can't believe that question. Leave the ANC to go on as they go on. And then? What happens in the meantime? I actually don't understand that question. Or perhaps it wasn't well thought through. Did you ask the question about the election, Scott, or was that part of the question?
Yeah, I asked. I just added on that part about the election.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Why don't I think so? Because the next election is in 2024. 2024. Okay? Now ask yourself the question. I've been talking about this for 6-7 years. Is that the economy will cause a total anarchy? Or like I said,
starving people.
Civil war. Do we think that the economy will just go on as if nothing happened? If and when, and nobody can tell you when, these clever, highly educated, highly intelligent ministers of this government will let us free out of our houses again. How's that? Do you think that the economy will just go on as previous? No. No. And the reality is, who will suffer the most from this economic disaster. There's no other question. With all of this, declared junk status. I'll tell you who's going to suffer first. The poorest of the poor. Doesn't matter what color you are. But if you then look at figures, I love figures. I love figures because it can't lie. It doesn't lie. Right?
I know Jacob Zuma doesn't like figures.
Then you make your own figures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Zuma makes his own figures. If you look at the figures, how many absolutely below poverty, extremely poor whites and coloreds are there compared to blacks? Many, many times more blacks. So, what is the effect if those millions of blacks don't have food anymore? We know, because we've seen how they burn everything. I mean, I looked at a WhatsApp video again, I think it was this morning, of an ambulance that went into a place. I'm telling you now, the ambulance didn't go there to smuggle cigarettes or booze or something. I'm sure they went in to do a job. The people in the ambulance were let out, so obviously it was before they picked up a patient. The ambulance was turned over, satellite burned.
Wow.
Everybody that looks at the video looks at the burning vehicle. I don't look at that. People make a point of what I'm telling you now. Look at the bystanders. And look at the faces.
Yeah.
They're either laughing or it's like it's totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant what's happening here. I mean, I'm sorry. I cannot even for 1/1,000,000th of a second think that is the kind of people that I want to associate myself with. But those are the figures that are against the government as well. There are millions. Millions. Next question.
Well,
let's have my last coffee. My coffee's
I guess there's one good thing about this lockdown is the ANC government will be blaming COVID for the completely corrupted state of the economy, and not Jan van Riebeck. You know, it gives poor old Jan a bit of a break, doesn't it? Now, Philip,
that's only relevant. That's only relevant, whatever they say.
Yeah.
If they still control us.
Yeah.
If they still control us, is now our decision. Are we going to secede or not? Our people, do they have the insight to understand that we can get away from this or not?
Well, that's what you've got to educate them about.
As much as I've said this before, as much as we've done, as much time, effort and money that we've spent getting this process ready, building this vehicle. This vehicle, by the way, was built with titanium. Titanium is extremely expensive. It's all wasted. It's worthless if the people doesn't want it. Simple.
Right.
And what does that mean? It does not mean that 2 or 3 or 30,000 or 300,000 people want it. 50% plus one of the voting population in that area must say yes. If they don't, it's gone. Nothing happens. And then the question that those same people, all the people that look, not you because you are here because you want answers, the people that doesn't look, must ask themselves is, do you think we will have any ever better chance than seceding under the circumstances that we have now? And my answer to you is, there is no chance. If we go into an official dictatorship, the next thing that you will see is army, police walking in here either arresting me or just shooting me through the head and done, over with. Doesn't feel anything for you that's seeing it. My brain splattering over the screen. That's a dictatorship, but people doesn't realize it. They don't understand that they're playing with not only their lives, but the lives of their children and their complete families. That's a dictatorship. This is where we're heading.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, next question.
That's okay. Now, Philip...
I'm upset because I don't have coffee anymore.
Philip Ben said, and he's got a contrary point of view about the banks, and he says banks will never be in trouble. They are allies of the government, with whom was Ramaphosa in a meeting the whole day before lockdown was announced. All major banks. Why? What are your thoughts on that?
So then he doesn't realize that banks cannot survive without money. What's going to happen to them? If you look at banks, let's just look at one that made a massive mistake a couple of years ago and they can't get out of it. Standard Bank, that started selling their bonds on houses. They started selling their bonds to Singapore and places like that. Why? Why did they do it? Because they want to create extra money. If you don't have people to pay your monthly bonds, those banks can't survive. Banks can't survive on property. The property standing there is worthless if there's nobody that can buy it and pay for it. The way our economy is heading at the moment is that, I said it right in the beginning, and I didn't finish the whole story. I said 70% of all businesses will go bankrupt. Less than a week later, Haystack, the economist, said 75%, or he predicts 75% of all businesses will go bankrupt. Do you realize the impact of that? Or is it just, oh, all right, these business people will go bankrupt? Do you understand the snowball effect of all the people that lose their jobs, the manufacturers, the courier companies, the transport companies, everybody in the process? The economy in South Africa will be worse than it was in Zimbabwe. Because at least in Zimbabwe, although they had hyperinflation, everything still ticked over. Then there's nothing in South Africa that ticks over. Everything, and now I'm saying as if we do not secede, okay? Everything will then boil down to, what do I have to barter for what I want? There's no other way. The economy can't work on money anymore.
Yeah.
It can only work on bartering, on exchanging goods for other goods. The sad thing about that kind of economy is it can't grow. It's impossible. The only way to sort an economy like that out is to get rid of a government, which we don't want to do. We don't want to get rid of the government. Please, ANC, stay in power. Please stuff your people around as much as you want to, because we also know that same people doesn't make money. They work for the people that make the money.
Right.
So the ANC government, in all their wisdom, does not have the insight. They do not have the intelligence to see that they're not only killing the people that make the money in this country, they're killing in the process their own people, and in the process themselves as well. Just the past 5 weeks, how much money do you think the government have lost on that and other revenues?
Huge.
It's ridiculous.
Huge.
It's ridiculous.
Look, I'm in your camp. I think the banks are going to collapse, and
It's gone. They can't exist anymore.
yeah, and the rating agencies have actually put all the South African banks into junk as well now.
Well, sorry, that's something I wanted to mention that you say now. You must remember one thing, the person that asked that question. What does it mean to be downrated to junk? It means a lot of things, but it also means that the international community may not invest in your country. What does investing in another country mean? I think that person doesn't understand the concept of it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they come and buy a holiday house here and a car that they put in a garage and they put a 10,000 Rand deposit at the bank. That's not investing. We're talking about massive government bonds, bank bonds, massive amounts of money that those banks doesn't have anymore now.
Okay, now
The banks will disappear.
yeah. Okay.
I'm so glad.
Vainon Proper has asked, what does the ULA propose to do as an organization to help the minorities in South Africa?
When did he come on? 2 seconds ago? The only way to answer you on that is go to www.ulacongress.com.
Is it
Because
.com?
there you will
Yeah,
find
.com.
90% of what I've said the whole time now.
Yeah. Okay, so just go.
Except the whole coronavirus thing. It's
Yeah.
not on there.
The website address is below this video, so you can just click on that and go straight to the website. Okay. I think we've covered that. We've covered the alliance, so we won't worry about that. Okay, we've covered that, Ambrose. We include all minorities in what Hein's talking about. Okay, Gino Casti says, Scott, we're still not sure where the boundaries from PE down, where it splits and to where. I think she's talking about that region, the secession.
Yeah, it's the detail of the map. That's why I said if you have the map, put it on. Alternatively, that map is on the website as well.
Whereabouts on the website? Because I couldn't find it.
On the ULA website.
Yeah.
Should be on there.
Yeah, but it's not.
No. It must be in there because if you go into the one it must be in there. But I will just, and I'm sure ULA people are watching tonight. So
Yeah. Maybe you can put the map on the home page.
Please have a look at it. He's our IT guy. In terms of the map, I just want to make this clear. This is a very important point, which we've talked about many, many times. If you live in areas, let's take a total ridiculous example. If you live in Umtata, don't expect Umtata to be part of the session area, because it's not, it can't be, it's impossible. If you live next to Nkandla and you've had your farm there for 5 million years, it will not be in the secession area. It's logic. But, and I want to quote international law on this. The international law says, and I'll explain it now. The national law says the boundaries that you indicate does not have to be your final boundaries. That means basically, if we took Boom Road as the boundary, and that's on the map, we took Boom Road as the boundary because on this side of Boom Road, the minorities is the majority. On the other side, it happens to be that there's one vote less for the minorities than, well, obviously because they're not in the majority. So therefore it's not part of it. But on that side of Boom Road, there are actually a lot of minorities. Therefore, international law says doesn't have to be your final boundary, but Boom Road doesn't have to be. What does it mean? It means that you can still go over and basically extend your border and get your border, not Boom Road, but River Road, whatever. And I'm talking about a road now, but I mean it can be much bigger area.
Isn't there a major road that's like the boundary going up on the eastern side of the area, going north out of the Eastern Cape?
In the N1 in the Free State is actually the boundary,
right? Okay.
As it is at the moment, which means east of the N1 is not the secession area, and west of the N1 is the secession area.
Now,
so what I'm trying to say is people must not worry that their property is just outside of the boundary. That boundary is determined not by the ULA, not by the USA, not by Mars. That boundary is determined by them, by the people in the area.
Right. Gordon Blue.
That makes that very clear.
Yeah. Gordon Blues has asked, and this is a related question. My question is, what is Hein's vision for secession regarding white areas of Gauteng? Can they be connected to an independent state?
But it is. I said so earlier.
But they wouldn't be fully in. If you take like Pretoria, that would be.
Pretoria is part of the secession area,
right?
Because there's massive amounts of Afrikaans-speaking people, Afrikaans and coloureds,
okay,
in Pretoria, and Indians, by the way.
Well, there's the answer to your question, Gordon. Okay, now Jack Stunders asked, ask Uncle Hein if he, in his own opinion, thinks that the ANC will accept a woman to rule over them. I think they're talking about Dlamini Zuma.
He's talking about Dlamini Zuma.
Yeah.
Firstly, just because I've got grey hair here doesn't mean I'm an uncle. No, just a joke. They don't care. It's all about power. You must. This goes in much deeper than that. You must understand that Dlamini Zuma, she was put up at the African Union in 2000. I'll tell you now. I think it was 2008. To go to the African Union, to become chairman there, that she can come back to South Africa as one of the main leaders. This is how they work. Now, for the people that know what I'm talking about, and hopefully some have read it, the Protocols of Zion, you'll understand that a lot of people look, we've got a saying in Afrikaans and in English, you don't look further than your nose. But the 10 Protocols of Zion actually talk about short-term, medium-term and long-term. And short-term they see as, I think, 10 years. I can't remember. I read the book many years ago. Medium-term they see as 50 years. And long-term they see as 150 years plus. Now, I'm not saying this is what the ANC is doing, but they are definitely looking at longer-term than what a lot of people look at. So they've set up Dlamini Zuma as a leader. So that answers your question.
So they would accept her?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Marlena has asked, she's one of our moderators, and Marlena Hein, she says, what will happen if the banks collapse? What will happen to those who have money in the banks and to those with bonds and debts, etc.?
The first thing that will happen if the banks collapse is I'll have a braai and I'll have a massive party. The second thing that will happen is that people that have money in the bank will lose it. The people that have bonds will have extreme uncertainty.
What about,
But you must also understand, we're talking about, you must look further than just people look at it in a current situation as it is now. If our people can wake up and we can secede, then it's irrelevant if the banks collapse.
Right. But just talking about that situation, let's say I've got a bond on my house and the bank collapses. who do I pay the money for the bond, or does that just disappear because it's
Disappears.
so you basically don't have any debts anymore?
Well, theoretically, yes, you do. But now they've got to go through the process. Firstly, they don't have money. So now they've got to pay people to do the work, but they don't have the money.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. That bank becomes like you and me as individuals if you start having serious financial problems. I've got serious financial problems, and I'm angry, and I'm the Muren, and I drive down to town, and a woman drives in front of me, and a husband jumps out, and I move him, and he makes a case against me. It's the worst that can happen to you, because you don't even have money to defend yourself. That's the point.
Right.
They don't have money to pursue all the bonds. There's only one thing that they can do then, and that is to either be bailed out by another bank from another country, or being sold to another bank from another country.
Right.
And then your bond just goes on as normal. But there's another but to this.
Okay.
Let's secede.
And then we don't worry about them.
Exactly. Then your bond stays in South Africa. And if that bond, money, the value, listen to this one now, if that value is more than the value of your house, well, then we deflate the value of the bond. You can't owe more on a house than it's worth.
Yeah,
You get my point.
I do.
Let's say, for instance, your house was, even today it's not worth anymore, but was worth, let's call it R1 million before the lockdown. In a week or a month's time from today, everything collapses. But you've got R1 million bond because you just bought the house. Then you secede. You've got a new country. And that bank goes belly up. And they sell their bonds. They sell their bonds to an overseas company, like Standard Bank have done. Illegally, by the way. They sell it to Singapore. Okay? But they don't sell it for R1 million. Don't make a mistake. They don't sell it for more than maximum 30%. So they sold that R1 million bond for 300,000 rand. But your house is worth only 500,000. Now the negotiation starts and say, right, because now it's not only a negotiation between you and the new bank. This falls under the Department of Finance of the new country. Ha! So the foreigners want to come and take over the houses bonds in South Africa, or South Africa, in the new country. No, not that easy. If you bought the bond for 300,000, you will get a registered bond on that property for 300,000, because the value of your house is not R1 million anymore. What I'm talking about here, is this standard practice in the world? No, because it hasn't happened yet. But you've got to look after your people. You've got to look after the growth of your country. You've got to look after the prosperity, or the potential prosperity, or again downfall of a new country. And you will obviously do the total 100% utmost to do that.
Right. Now, Colin Rue asks, Hein, I'm not saying some people should not defend themselves, but don't you think a secession is going against God's plan for this country?
Well, I don't know if she spoke to God, but I read the Bible, and in the Bible, they don't use the word secession, but they actually use the other word. They call it in the Bible war, and in Afrikaans oorlog. And all the wars or oorlogte that was fought in the Bible, most of them that you talk about in the Bible and that you read about in the Bible, God actually helped these people. And I believe God is helping us at the moment. Just like God helped us at Blood River.
Right. Okay, Laffin asks, what does Hein think about Agenda 21 and 2030? It has not gone away.
Let me put it this way. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about a lot of these things. But I always say that if there is something that's unclear, like Agenda 21, for instance, you'd be stupid to ignore it, for sure. But then again, we must understand that Agenda 2021 is for America. If it is meant for South Africa, listen to me, if it is also meant for South Africa, then I'm saying I would love to see these fit, perfectly dressed, fantastic South African National Defence Force enforcing it, because they are going to meet a couple of people in this country that will actually help them to run wherever they want to. Simple.
Right.
Simple. If you want to fight, believe me, there are more than enough. And no, I don't expect people, even guys, that don't want to fight, that don't believe in it, whatever you want to call it. No, nobody's going to force you. There's enough of us that will do it, don't worry. I'd love to have more people. The more we have, the better, obviously. At Blood River, it was 400 odd against approximately, they don't really know, 20 to 30,000. The odds were totally against them, but they made a vow with God and they won. I'm saying, if we have to make a vow with God again, we will do it. But what about respecting the first vows in the first place in any case? I've got 30 odd people working for me. I asked, not long ago, I asked one of the guys, I said, do you know what holiday it is? Tomorrow. The long and the short, I don't want to go into it because I don't want to, if they see it, make them feel bad, because that's not the point. The point is, his parents obviously never told him what does Ascension Day mean. To him it's Freedom Day. People don't know. That to me is going 100% against God and the vow that was made to him to protect his nation. We've got to turn back to God. It's as simple as that. Let's go on with the questions.
Milton Rip asks, once the session is completed, will the Nguni people that settled in the new country since 94 be expelled?
Yes.
Okay.
Next question.
Okay. Alan Scrooby asks, Hein, what can you do with 5 million supporters if they stand together?
Yo, we'll take the world. But we don't want the world.
I think standing together, Eendracht maakt macht, is really the key to all this, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you look at Kasinga, and I'm trying to get the figures, I think we had 3,400 people there, and they were, I don't know, over 20,000, the Cubans. What happened? You know, figures doesn't play a role. But if you turn it around like you've done now to say, when you've got 5 million behind you, imagine, then we can start dreaming. But we don't want to dream. We only want what God wants to give us. It's as simple as that.
Okay, now Frick Brits has asked, are we going to lose the Kruger Park?
Um, why? Does he have elephants there?
I'm not sure.
We're going to lose a lot. People must understand it. Are we going to lose the Kruger? I don't know. You answer me. I don't live there. I've told you earlier. You determine the borders. In terms of our legal argument of where we've drawn the maps, yes, we're going to lose it. But are we practically going to lose it? That you're going to determine. I don't know. If you live there.
I have to tell you something really interesting about this, and that is that there is actually a court case going on which involves the Kruger National Park and the eastern part of the old Transvaal, because that land was previously deeded to the Boers by...
I don't know about it.
So, that's actually an ongoing court case. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Okay.
So my question is, who's got more money to fight that court case, the government or the people that fight it?
Yeah.
And the question, the answer we all know.
Right.
And specifically, if you go back to what I said earlier about Dani, our attorney, that I told him, is this still a legal state or is it a political dictatorship?
Yeah.
Who do you want to fight? Dictatorship or legal system? If it's a legal system, go for it. It's not anymore.
Okay, now Talita van Rooyen's asked, Hein, do you work together with Boere Lishian?
I'll answer you like that. I have put out many statements. Written, verbally, visually, everything. We will work with any individual or any group that works legally or strives legally towards secession. Any.
Right. Now, John Smith has asked, what marketing is ULA doing to speed up the mandate process, as 2 million signatures seems a long way off?
My question to you, John Smith, what are you doing?
They got to tell all their friends.
Sure.
And
if there's 1,700 people on now.
We've got about 1,400 right now.
Right. And each person just gets 10 signatures. We've got 14,000 more. That's the question. Stop asking what we're doing. Ask what you're doing. Isn't that the very famous one about America? Stop asking what we can do for you. Start asking what you can do. In this case, not for us, but for yourself. Because secession is for yourself.
Right. Now, Gordon Blues asks, if a mandate cannot be gained in one contiguous area, can Hein envisage a state made up of separate enclaves like Bophuthatswana used to be?
No. No, I can't see that, quite simply because it's not practical. And the best example in the world is West Berlin after the Second World War. And specifically, I think it was 1962-63 when East Berlin blocked West Berlin off, and they had to fly every little penny into West Berlin. It's not practical.
Right.
The answer is no.
Okay, now Renell Griffiths has asked, if totally anarchy hits, where do we unite?
Okay, that's a very practical question, but it's a question that she shouldn't ask me. She should ask the people in her area that are organizing the self-defense groups, because obviously I'm in Hartenbos. I can't tell her where to meet. I don't even know where she is. Each and every town in the city, it's worse, has got worse, meaning that the situation will be worse there, or more dangerous. They've got different plans and they've got different places to go to if the popo hits the fan. the interesting thing is that I've read today that there might be a very good possibility that the fan won't even run, because apparently, even in this lockdown with virtually no electricity usage, Eskom wants to go on
load shedding.
Load shedding again.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks 100% as if the government is trying everything possible to get the minorities to stand up and to fight. Because they don't want to start it, but they want to fight because they think that their fit, intelligent, fantastic SANNDF will wipe us out, because then they've got a reason to do it. Got a surprise coming for them. But the reality is, it looks as if they're trying everything. Now even getting power outages again. Why? Where? Factories are standing still. Nobody may work, and now suddenly there's no power for Eskom. Can you believe it? They're trying everything. But what they don't realize is that we have a very intelligent, incredible, fantastic God on our side.
Right.
And all I can ask is our people to be calm. Prepare, but be calm. The time will come, like I've said in a video I made about 5 weeks ago, I can't remember. Like Malema said, it's not yet. I'm telling you, not yet.
Right. Now, Jami Williams has asked a question for Hein. How fast is this catching on with our people? How fast is this idea spreading? Are people waking up to this, and how much longer before we get it in Hein's estimation?
Yeah, interesting. That's why I'm referring to God the whole time, because interestingly enough, things started spreading and speeding up much faster since the lockdown, for a lot of reasons, because people have more time to read Facebook and WhatsApps and whatever. That's the one reason, obviously. But the other reason also is because people now realize, whoa, my dream was actually a pipe dream in this country. All the nonsense that Hein Marx and the ULA have been talking about is not nonsense. There's some truth in it. So there's a lot of reasons why people wake up, but they are waking up. There's no question. Question of how long, I'm not a prophet, so I can't tell you when. But if you look at the situation as it is at the moment, if you look at the situation that the government is pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to push people into breaking the law from getting cigarettes, because remember, most people, not all of them, that are smoking are actually addicted to it. Addiction is a very serious thing, and people don't realize it. With the alcohol, it's even worse. I really don't know what people who are addicted to alcohol is doing now, because it's killing them. It's serious. Yes, some of them will get out of this because they couldn't get alcohol. They will be basically healed, but I think that's the minority. The point is they're pushing. And if they carry on like they're carrying on the government pushing people, then my prediction is that because of the economy that is totally shattered, because of the economy that may not be helped by me getting a packet of nails here and an extra telephone there because it's not essential, whatever it is that you may not buy, the economy is getting worse and worse. And because the economy is getting worse and worse, the government is getting less and less money. And because the government is getting less and less money, they don't have money to pay their SASSA grants. And because they can't pay SASSA grants, their people, my people, that's what he's talking about. That's what Ramaphosa is talking about. I'm not saying it, I'm just repeating his words. Their people. And they won't have a choice. This is the interesting thing. They are hungry. They will stand up in mass and start plundering. They will get in contact and in confrontation with their own SANDF, and then a civil war will start. The question is when. This is your question. If you look at how things are going at the moment, definitely before the end of the year.
Wow.
And if I say before the end of the year, I'm not talking about the 30th of December, much earlier. Ask yourself the question, if you do not have food, for the person that asked the question, if you do not have food, how long can you stay hungry without doing anything? And remember, you're at home, irrelevant of where your house is or your shack or whatever it is, how long can you stay at home and how long will you stay at home if you're hungry, your wife or your husband is hungry and your children are crying they're hungry? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Just sit there and say, well, I may not do anything because my government said I may not go out of my house. You really think that's going to go off? No. No. And that will not take until the end of the year.
Right. Now, Dan van Zyl has asked, what will happen when we have a new country with new borders, our own army and police? Do you think the ANC will attack with their army? This new country might always be under attack.
Two things. I like the way that he asked the question, not if, but when. Thank you for that. Do we think the ANC will attack us? Unfortunately, they won't. Unfortunately, they won't, because we will be strong.
Right. Well, I think we've covered all the questions. There have been some questions which have been asked, which we've already discussed, so I haven't actually asked you those questions because we're just going over those comments again. I just want to say, or address the side chat for a second, Hein, won't be long. Guys, please remember to subscribe to the channel. We've got a very interesting live stream every night at 8 p.m. and we've just had a fabulous evening with Hein. We hit a record viewership of over 1,700 people at one time watching this particular live stream, which is fantastic. So congrats to everybody who joined us. As I said, please remember to subscribe. Hein, before we shut down this live stream, I'm sure you're dying for another coffee. Before we shut down this live stream, have you got a message you would like to give to the people who are watching this video now? And yes, this video will be archived, so people can always watch it later on as well.
Scott, the first thing I want to say is thank you very, very much for the opportunity again to get the message out. The very important other thing I want to say to the people is, for the people that does not know it, Scott went onto a hunger strike for the people in South Africa that are denied food by this government. And for that, Scott, thank you it's just words. Thank you. If I was there, I would have not only taken your hand, I would have given you a man hug, like they say. Because what you are doing for South Africa is just, it's immense. And people don't realize it. People don't realize it's like, what, 6 o'clock in the morning for you at the moment? Am I right?
It's about 6 o'clock right now, yeah.
So what you're doing for us is immense. And I want to thank you for that. Because without this, and you were talking about the mainstream media, hopefully in my lifetime and in your lifetime, we will start talking about a mainstream media as an old history word, because it's nonsense. It doesn't exist anymore. We must call them fake media. I think that's the better word for it. So what you are doing is fantastic. And I want to ask everybody looking at this tonight, for nobody else and for nothing else than for Scott and for what he's doing, subscribe to his channel, please. This is how the word gets out. I mean, even what we are trying to do as the ULA, every time that I had, and this is the third, I think you said, interview with Scott, suddenly our votes spike. The interesting thing is, our own fake media in South Africa does not cover this. Why don't they cover it? Because we don't pay them. We don't have money to give them. So please, people, that to me is more important than anything else. Support Scott, support Loving Life, subscribe to his channel, because the reality is you also get real news here from him. Irrelevant if you like or if you don't like what the ULA is doing, at least you got the truth. Irrelevant if you like it or not, that's the truth. That is news. So please subscribe. Then in terms of the ULA and in terms of what we are doing, I want to beg everybody, and I've begged people many times in terms of the ULA stuff. Please, I beg you, talk to people. Go to ulacongress.com and vote. It takes you 30 seconds. I'm very slow with the computer, so it might take me 60 seconds. But that's the point, it won't take you longer than 60 seconds. You're not doing it for me, you're not doing it for Scott, you're not doing it for anybody else than for yourself and for your family. But then in the bigger sense, you're doing it for your people. People, this is a reality. Just as it is a reality, we are sitting tonight locked down. Do you really think that we will get all our liberties and freedoms back? I think you must be incredibly naive if you think that. But if we have our own independent country again, we will have total freedom. We will not have a totally overloaded central government that only plunders and rapes the economy of the country. Then we can have a land of milk and honey. Yes, we can. But it does not depend on the ULA and it does not depend on me. It depends on you to vote and to go out and get the mandate. In terms of international law, we may not get independence without the will of the people. The will of the people is yes, I want it, or no, I don't want it. That's my message. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thanks, Hein. And look, from this channel's point of view, look, we fully support what you're doing. I mean, you're doing something proactive and looking at options for people in South Africa. And I often push the idea of secession and refer to the ULA because I really think that is the way forward, and so I'm very much in your camp when it comes to that. All right, guys, I'm just going to say thank you so much to the moderators. You've done a fantastic job tonight. I couldn't have the side chat going if I didn't have you there to monitor what's been said, and we have to be careful because of YouTube over that. And to all the thousands of people who've watched the video live, thank you so much for being part of this live stream. And remember, every night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time we have a live stream, and tomorrow night we're talking to Rene Roux, who is a very senior person within Solidarity Helping Hands, and we're going to be talking about the situation where the food parcels are being basically taken away from the white communities and distributed by the ANC to black communities. It's a huge issue happening right now in South Africa. And remember on Saturday night we've got the Khoi King who's coming on. That's going to be a fascinating discussion because I love the Khoi people. I think they're an amazing people. And thank you to everybody who's joined us tonight. So with that, I'm just going to say once again, thank you, Hein. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and we'll always have you on a live stream if you've got something that's breaking you want to talk about. And with that, I'm going to shut down the live stream and say see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m.
Scott, just 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
One mistake that you've made, unfortunately, you've said Johannesburg time. You've got to actually go on Marshall Bay or Hartenbos time.
It's funny you should say that, because one of our guests the other night says, well, the center of the world is Bloemfontein, because that's where he grew up.
That'll work as well.
All right, guys, take care, and signing out. See you tomorrow night, 8 p.m.